let's just talk a little bit about the A2B process for one moment. And, if someone were to come to us and reach out to us and, talk about the project that they have to work on and the kind of assets they're trying to track, what's the process that they want to hear about from your words, Darryl? How would you take them through that process so we understand their environment and all their workflow issues?
Well, you know, depending on the complexity of what it is the customer is trying to do, we'll oftentimes try to engage on a site visit where we can come out, inspect the environment, perform spectrum analysis type work if we feel that's required. If it's a challenging environment with a lot of metal in it, maybe large machinery doing different things that might impact the RF, which will certainly impact the performance that we would expect out of the RFID system. So sometimes those are some things we do, or just getting out, understanding, how high ceilings are, where we would be putting any readers or antennas, what cabling might be required. All of those things really need to be seen firsthand in order to provide the most benefit from our perspective, and to provide the most accurate proposals. So in many cases that's very important. Many customers that we work with, they come right out of the gates and they want to use a mobile solution because it's a good way to start. They can gain a lot of benefits from the mobile solution. They can start to understand how the RF is going to help their operation, and then from there you can start to leverage other fixed pieces of equipment, fixed readers and antennas, portals, choke points within the facility, depending on the workflows. Maybe you want to augment the workflows so you can leverage some of those other types of technology. But that's the general approach that we would like to take.
Well, and I'll add, what I didn't hear you say was just in reference to getting really clear on the goals and the objectives. And from my experience, what we often see is that people may think that the problem they're trying to solve is in one area of their operation, where when you dig deeper, it's really something different. For instance, people may say that, yeah, well, really, we just want to speed up our inventory process, right? We want to reduce maybe the time it's taking to manually process. And a lot of times we get people contacting us who are going from Barcode and want to actually move now to an RFID system and work with a company that gets both sides of it. But as such, just speeding up an inventory process sometimes isn't exactly what the real issue, the core issue is. Sometimes it's addressing the problem of where assets grow legs and they just move from one area where they should be into another area which becomes an unknown, and then they lack the visibility that they need. So, or sometimes it's both, right? But we want to dig down and really get to the core issue of what is it, the true problem that you're trying to solve, before we make a recommendation for the right technology and the right investment at the end of the day and how to solve that particular problem.
Right. Yeah, we've had customers that spend a lot of time looking for certain tools that, again, they're used on this end of the shop, used on that end of the shop, and now there's an operation, a job that needs it, and it can't be found. So, good point.
I know many organizations also have IT equipment, right? Everything from people who use laptops and mobile computers and other IT assets, as well as those who have really sensitive data, typically on servers inside certain controlled areas within their operation. How does this technology apply to those kind of assets, since that's such a widespread application of it?
Well, I think, again, all the things we've said: improved asset visibility, traceability, data accuracy, understanding your inventory levels for all various types of IT equipment. Tag selection is obviously important, depending on the type of asset, what it's made out of, plastic or metal. If it's in a data center, if there's a lot of steel cages or steel lined walls for security, those are all things that need to be taken into consideration when putting these types of solutions together.
Just to touch upon the metal issue surrounding if the choice was the use of RF technology, you mentioned the metal, sheathed walls. Explain that.
Yeah, because you put your antennas inside a room that's put together like that, then the RF is going to be reflecting a lot more than it would if it was just sheetrock. So, it takes tuning of these systems in challenging environments is going to be critical to the success of the system, and that's where you'd be looking for that type of expertise
Okay.
to help you do that.
And you did mention somewhere a little further back here is the spectrum analysis. Yes, that might be an unfamiliar concept to people who are tuning in here, but explain that a little bit, and so they get the context for it.
Well, a spectrum analyzer is just a tool that we can use to go out in an environment and be looking for certain thresholds for our RF activity to see if it's if our signals are getting knocked down too low, or if the bands aren't showing us the right throughput or the right coloring. Then it takes a little time and tinkering to try and figure out why that is. Or sometimes it could be fluorescent lights or a piece of equipment over here that's not letting the RF get over to this other aisle where I'm trying to track boxes on a shelf. And then it's a report that we would provide with our expertise as to why whether it's good or why it looks like it does, and what we could do or you could do to potentially improve that before we would engage in implementing an RFID.